Today we are covering off on the next level of the athletic eating and 98 Riley Street nutrition system. So in the foundation level, what we were looking at was establishing some really basic nutrition skills, including vegetables in our daily diet on a regular basis, including lean meats and protein to help enhance muscles and recovery. We were also looking at reducing alcohol intake and reducing the amounts of snack foods that we're having that weren't necessarily providing us with any nutrition value at all. So in our next section, we're looking to move from foundation, which was a minimum of 4-week buy-in, into the performance aspect of the nutrition. So if you haven't done your 4 weeks buy-in, you need to keep repeating that one until we get there. But for performance nutrition, we have a 3-month block that we are focusing in on. We want to make sure that we are not passing go on this one until we have done that 3-month block. And again, this is all about creating the habits that are associated with nutrition success and performance. So what is a part of the performance nutrition framework? What we are looking at is the continuation of those habits that you built in the foundation. Lean meats, vegetables, consistency, reduction of alcohol, more sleep. But we are layering on top of that. We want to start getting some data from you. So we have equations that we can use to figure out how best to assess your nutrition intake. However, there's nothing better than actually tracking your own nutrition. So the first point of call with the performance nutrition is actually getting your app out and tracking your nutritional intake for 1 full week. And that means the good, the bad, and the ugly. Not just tracking what you want me to see or that you want somebody to see, but actually tracking what you are doing on a daily basis. And this gives most people the feedback that they need to clean up their diet that little bit further. But it also gives us the data that we need to see where in your nutrition we need to enhance for performance. So we're going beyond general health recommendations and we're going into fine-tuning and dialing in our nutrition. We also, after the 7 days of tracking, we also want you to go see a doctor, get a general health check. This is something you should be doing at least every 12 months. Making sure that everything is on track, especially for women, getting those iron levels checked to make sure that with a heavy training load, you're making sure that your iron status is in check, because that is a very common symptom of female athletes is low iron, but also for males, super important. Once we've done the 7 days, I want to also get you guys looking at your nutrition habits. We all have habits. Some suit us and some serve us well, like brushing your teeth and wearing a seatbelt. Other habits like getting 2-for-1 chocolate blocks at the petrol station when they're on special, not a good habit to have. Part of this is investigating, looking at what you are doing specifically and what things you can change. Once you actually have an assessment of what you're doing on a regular basis, you've written it down, we can start actually consciously making changes to that. These are subtle changes, but when it comes to performance nutrition, we are going for those 1%ers. The next thing that we're looking at is pre-planning your pre-training snacks. So in some cases, having 3 square meals and snacks is an adequate amount of food for training. However, we do want to assess how are you going into training. Are you going in feeling really well fueled, feeling full of energy, or are you going in after having not eaten for a couple of hours, feeling a little bit flat? We want to start assessing our energy levels and fueling accordingly. So for the most part, our carbohydrate-rich snack will help us get through this session, especially when we're looking at those high-intensity sessions, ESD sessions where they're longer and we tend to flag. If we go into that well-fueled with muscles that are full of glycogen, we're going to maximise the outputs in that training session. By choosing a quality carbohydrate snack going into your training session, you should notice the difference on longevity and output during that session. Things like whole grains, rice cakes, fruit, starchy vegetables, or even smoothies can be a really great way of just amping up that carbohydrate intake leading in, so we're topping up that glycogen in our muscles so we can go harder for longer. we're planning our snacks, then what we're doing is we're actually planning our meals as well. It doesn't have to be full-on itemized meal plans, but we do want to have a generalized idea written down what meals we're having across the week and then going shopping for that. A lot of people get caught up with meal prep when they just leave it to the last minute and have no clue. At least if you've written down what you're having for dinner each night, doubling it and having half for lunch the next day, we've got the ingredients ready to go in the fridge. We know we've reduced some of that decisional fatigue that we get when we have too many options and end up making bad choices. And it also means that our consistency in our food intake is going to be better across the board. So that extra planning takes you from beginner's nutrition into performance nutrition. We also want to look at a further reduction of packaged and processed food. So a little bit of processed food in the early days to try and get you started and a bit more consistent is fine. But when we're moving from, say, 70% of our food being good, but 30% being not as ideal, we're moving the bracket up to 80% this time. So remembering, just say there's 35 meals in the week, we're leaving when we're moving into the 80% bracket of foods being homemade, 80% of the time we're eating well. We've gone from 70 to 80 in the performance nutrition, and we want to make sure that we're only having 1 or 2 meals out per week that aren't on the menu. Have whatever you want and maybe a couple of snacks, but for the most part those other 30 meals are ones that you have planned, you've prepared yourself, or you have at least outsourced to a healthy eating meal plan. You've outsourced to a meal prep company or something similar like that. Just making sure that you have a plan. So and the next one is, in the foundation nutrition, we were looking at reducing drinking occasions to twice a week. And in this one, if we're stepping up from foundation nutrition into performance nutrition, we need to pull back that even further. Drinking occasions, they occur, but we want to be planning them, and we want to make sure that it's really one night a week where you might be having 3 or 4 drinks in a setting. This is because alcohol intake, although it's very fun, really does impact recovery. It impacts your sleep, impacts your gut health, impacts the digestion and absorption of your food. So really cutting yourself down at the knees if we're going out partying twice a week on the weekend, and then trying to back it up with training during the week. It takes a few days to recover. So really it's by Wednesday that we're getting back into gear. If we can reduce that alcohol intake to 1 night a week and only having 3 to 4 drinks in that one sitting, we're going a really long way to maximising the work that we're putting down in the gym. Following on from the sleep protocol in the foundation nutrition, we want to be adding on another half an hour to 45 minutes on what we put on last time. So really the ideal is we're aiming for around that 7.5 to 8 hours sleep per night. So it doesn't matter where you've started from. Each block, we're adding in another half an hour, 45 minutes of sleep. Again, from a recovery perspective, super important to give our body the chance to recover, but also from an appetite perspective, reduction in sleep means extra hunger and cravings for those sweet foods the next day. The more sleep, the more quality sleep we can get, the better our body composition is going to be for those 2 reasons. Finally, we are going to be looking at actually quantifying our protein intake, using that 7 days of food data that you took, taking the average of carbs, of fats, of proteins, of fibre, and looking at what your current intake looks like, going to the protein and making sure that you are consuming between 1.5 and 2 grams per kilo of your body weight. So just say you found out that you're currently consuming 100 grams of protein per day and you are a 70 kilo male, you want to be hitting around 140 grams for maximum body composition change and for maximum muscle gain. So we need to find an extra 40 grams in that specific case to boost and to maximise that protein intake. So using that nutrition data that you collected to actually make some active changes, and actually also actively seeking out how much protein you're having and what that actually looks like in food terms. So that's really taking it from a basic message of having protein in each meal to actually quantifying what you're currently having and then actively changing that. So what can we expect from a performance nutrition perspective? We can expect with the extra protein intake, with the extra sleep, with the better nutrition, some improved muscle mass. We want to see around 0.5 kilo to 1 kilo every month or so increase as we go through this process. We were looking at a reduction in body fat because we're reducing alcohol, because we're reducing those processed food and increasing the amount of food that we're making at home. We can expect to see around a 250 to 500 gram reduction in fat mass almost consistently every week if we're consistent with this process. Improved training metrics is definitely a big one. Visible body composition change, going from general nutrition into this more streamlined nutrition. We want to be able to notice this stuff. We're also looking at improved blood markers, improved VO2 max, and body composition. And sticking with these outlines for a consistent 3-month block, we're going to see our body fat percentage coming down. The people who can do this consistently are the people who are sitting around 10 to 13% for males and probably around the 18 to 21% for females, just to give people an idea of where they would be sitting at. So the knowledge that's required is we need to be able to identify protein sources. We need to be able to track our nutrition and do that accurately and with consistency for at least 1 week. We need to be mindful of what we're putting in our mouth. We need to be planning our food. And these are all just the general skills that we need in order to take our nutrition from the foundation level all the way up to the performance nutrition. Again, it's a 3-month buy-in. We need to be doing this consistently to see these results in action.